listener production.
Hey, Chris Spear with you. Welcome to The Briefing. There's nothing healthy about a tan, but that message seems to have faded with the rise of tanning products like nasal sprays and injectables, and soon Australia's first tanning gummies.
We have to be really clear that tanning gummies do not confer any UV benefit at all. It's purely giving this yellowy orange colour to the skin, which some people may perceive as looking, healthier. But it really ties into what I think is quite a worrying trend and a growing trend for this need or desire to look tanned and look sun-kissed.
That deep dive is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Tara Cassidy. It's Wednesday, the 10th of September.
Hey Chris, and to you listening. This morning, world leaders including from France, the UK and UN have condemned deadly strikes by Israel in the capital of Qatar that have reportedly killed at least 6 people, 5 of them members of terrorist group Hamas. It's the first publicly known time that Israel has attacked the Gulf state, bombing Hamas's headquarters in Doha. Here's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking at a press conference this morning.
Yesterday, 4 of our soldiers were killed by Hamas terrorists in Gaza, and 6 Israeli civilians were brutally murdered in a bus stop in Jerusalem. This morning, Hamas proudly took credit for both of these actions. At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th.
The Hamas officials targeted in this latest attack are reportedly those involved in another round of ceasefire negotiations after Israel accepted another US plan related to Gaza earlier this week. Speaking of the US, we have since heard from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals.
She went on to say Trump was given a heads up and passed the intelligence along to Qatar, and that while the president regrets the location of the attack, he still believes targeting and eliminating Hamas is a worthy goal. Now, as for Australians still in Doha at the time of the strikes, they were told to stay inside their accommodation and to follow the advice of local authorities, with Smart Traveller now saying to exercise normal safety precautions.
There are calls for national protections after Australian retailers have been forced to ramp up security measures after an unprecedented rise in violence and theft. Bunnings has rolled out body cams for its staff, Woolies has got a unit to tackle aggression, and now another major independent supermarket chain says it may close stores in one state where incidents are rife.
The CEO of Richie's IGA says retail crime in Victoria, where it operates 52 of its 85 stores, has reached a quote crisis point, making it almost impossible to manage a business while keeping staff and customers safe. Speaking to the ABC, Fred Harrison says attacks have become more brazen since the pandemic, now happening in broad daylight with weapons such as knives and with little to no regard for staff.
Yeah, and recent crime data by the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows that theft is at a 21-year high across the country, with nearly 600,000 cases recorded by police in the last year, and 45% of them occurring at retail locations. Now, the Australian Retailers Association is among the groups that are calling for a national rollout of workplace protection orders like those in the ACT, which basically ban repeat offenders from entering specific stores or shopping centres, with tough penalties for those who breach them.
Dodgy childcare centres are set to face whopping penalties as new child safety reforms are introduced today that will triple penalties in parts of the country. The nation-leading changes being made in New South Wales will include $500,000 fines for providers that breach safety protocols and a 900% increase in fines for large providers with 25 or more services. The reforms will include 30 different changes, several that have been agreed on at a national level in recent weeks.
Now, to quickly unpack what some of those changes will be, one is the ability for the childcare regulator to suspend or revoke a centre's quality rating after an investigation. And why that's helpful is basically right now, that's one of the only ways that a parent can actually try and figure out the quality of a provider when they're picking where to send their kid. And another change is regulators will be able to publish info about any providers that might be deemed risky, so perhaps they have an active investigation into them. They will also be able to suspend individual early learning educators. The penalty for not having the right number of staff present at facilities has gone up, as has the fine for any providers or educators who don't follow directions to ban inappropriate people, Chris.
Yeah, there will also be stricter checks on workers, but while many are applauding the Min's government's move here, the Greens have labelled it a bare minimum, saying governments in every state and territory need to go much further to restore the faith of Aussies and ensure their kids are safe in childcare. Greens MP Abigail Boyd, who's the chair of the Education Committee pushing for this reform, says the changes are both significant yet underwhelming, saying basically the bar's been so low that these reforms are not at all groundbreaking and the job's nowhere near done just yet.
Animal activist groups and experts are calling on the Australian government to ban social media influencers who inappropriately handle our wildlife, or dice with death, as Queensland Premier David Crisafulli put it. It comes after US influencer Mike Holston, who dubs himself the real Tarzan, posted a video of him catching both freshwater and saltwater crocodiles on Cape York to his various social media accounts.
There's saltwater crocodile, Crocodylus ferocis. Oh my God, big croc.
The videos have amassed over 37 million views on Instagram alone, with one showing Holston running after a croc, diving on it and grabbing hold of it, while the croc can be heard making noises as it's held in the air.
Got a hold of me, but I got a hold of him. Fuck, you got a good piece of my arm there. Look at that guy.
It's led to backlash from some corners of the community, including from PETA, who've called for Holston to be deported and banned from the country. They say not only is catching crocs unfathomably stupid, but it's also illegal. And like other native animals, like wombats and koalas, crocs are sensitive animals that experience pain and stress.
Yeah, and they've mentioned wombats there, which reminds me, well, how can we forget the last animal US influencer encounter, Chris, that we had just months ago, back in March, when a woman called Sam Jones posted a video of her snatching a baby wombat away from its mother.
Just caught a baby wombat. Look at the mother. It's like, oh, it's chasing after her.
I got a baby wombat. Okay, Mama's right there, and she is pissed.
And it caused huge uproar from Aussies, with Sam later apologising and actually leaving the country, and then Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke saying it's unlikely she'll be allowed to return. And now this latest video involving Mike Holston is also being reviewed by the Department of Environment, which leads me to say, I think, lesson of the day, Chris, to our US and tourist friends: leave the wildlife alone.
And the moment of truth, Tara Cassidy. Do you consider yourself a good driver or someone who can trigger road rage in even the calmest of motorists?
I think I am a fabulous driver, thank you. But I think if I asked my now husband, he would answer that very differently.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, look, we will take your word for it, Tara Cassidy. No driving lessons for you for Christmas. But whichever side of the coin you are on, you will love this next story, because a new survey in Queensland revealed which driver habits we absolutely hate the most. Any guesses for number one?
It has to be surely idiots that weave between lanes on the highway. That is my gripe.
Yeah, not quite, but I'm in full solidarity with you there. No, number one is actually tailgating. It is our biggest pet peeve, according to 96% of those who were surveyed. Coming in at number two is litter bugs, or those, who throw rubbish out their window. And number three, people talking or texting on handheld phones.
Interesting. I agree with tailgating. I'm actually surprised to see littering at number two. Like, I agree, but I did not think that would be...
Yeah, me too. Did not think it was going to be that high on the list.
Yeah, make people's blood boil. Interesting.
Yes, and I'm not going to incriminate myself, but look, I think I've taken part in all three of these things, Tara.
Oh, Chris. No, you haven't. Shh.
No. Hush. Anyone listening, hush. But look, we do want to hear what you guys think. What is your biggest driver pet peeve? We'll chuck a question in our broadcast channel Behind the Briefing on our Instagram page at The Briefing Podcast. Let us know. But better yet, if this topic really, really gets your blood boiling, send us a voice note on Insta with your answer. We might air it on the show. You never know. Friday's always a fun day for our last stories.
Keen to hear. Now, that brings our headlines to a close for today, guys. But coming up next is Helen Smith's deep dive, looking into the resurgence of the trend we thought had died, but has now come back in the form of tanning products like sprays, injections, even gummies. Have a listen to that up next.
Sunscreen, tanning and regulation have all been thrown into the spotlight this year after a choice report tested 20 popular SPF 50 and SPF 50 plus sunscreens and found 16 of them were well below their published SPF claims, with one sunscreen coming back as low as 4, resulting in some being pulled off shelves completely. It comes as we've seen tanning and tanland start trending on social media and tanning products boom, including some unregulated methods like tanning injections, nasal sprays and tanning gummies, alarming many experts who are calling for stricter regulation, with melanoma being the third most commonly diagnosed cancer in Australia. And with the recent announcement of the first ever Australian-made tanning gummy, it's prompted questions about how they're regulated, what's actually in them, and if these products are safe, plus the broader dangerous messaging around tanning. Dr Ryan de Cruz is a leading dermatologist and sun safety expert. Dr Ryan, what are tanning gummies?
So most tanning gummies contain derivatives of vitamin A, which we call beta-carotenoids, and these are naturally found pigments from plants. The most common example is carrots, which make them orange. Beta-carotenoids, there is quite a few different ones, including beta-carotene, lycopene, and astaxanthin. And at high doses, what these do is actually accumulate in the skin, giving it a kind of bronze look, but I guess most people would claim that it actually looks more yellow to orange, just like a carrot would, so not quite a true tan.
So what are they doing to us underneath the skin? You just said they're making our skin appear more orange?
That's right. So these pigment particles will accumulate in the skin because that's how, I guess, our body is trying to get rid of them in excess doses. So normally when we consume fruit and vegetables, they'll contain small doses of these carotenoids and our body will process them largely through the liver and then they're slowly excreted. And one of the way they're excreted is actually through the skin. But when our body is exposed to really high doses of it, then I guess it starts to accumulate in the skin. So what they're doing is giving it a colour, but they don't necessarily provide any protection. So it's quite different from melanin, which our body produces normally. And melanin is also a pigment that forms a little umbrella that sits over our DNA. And the purpose of melanin is to protect DNA against UV radiation. So it is a natural way that the body serves to protect itself and protect from UV radiation and damage, whereas the carotenoids don't offer that same protection. They just give it colour.
And are there any types of gummies that are legal here in Australia?
There are some gummies that are already available for purchase, and this is a really interesting question and an important point. None of these gummies are what we call TGA approved. That's the Therapeutic Goods Administration. So the whole, I guess, vitamin industry and natural remedy industry doesn't require to prove that these medicines or these capsules or pills or gummies actually confer a biological benefit. They aren't subject to the same rigorous testing for efficacy and safety. So they're not sold as therapeutic medicines, right? You don't go to a pharmacy and buy it. You don't need a prescription to purchase them. You can simply purchase them online. And the idea here is that it's therefore a very unregulated industry. We are not seeing the testing that proves efficacy so that it actually works, number one. And number two, in more concerningly, we don't see the same level of safety data, which we would expect from any other medication.
So when it comes to the regulation, how does that work?
So that's a really good question. And unfortunately, tanning gummies, like many other ultraceuticals or nutraceutical ingredients on the market, so vitamins and supplements, are not subject to TGA regulation. That is, it's a very unregulated market. So there's no one controlling doses, there's no one controlling efficacy or seeking safety data for all of these types of gummies and many other supplements out there.
So looking at tanning gummies, are any of them illegal in Australia?
Not to my knowledge. There may be some that the TGA or the Australian government have prohibited from being sold for particular reasons. But as far as I know, you can purchase these online relatively easily. And now there's becoming a booming industry for this because they're already very big in other parts of the world. We're starting to see more Australian brands of very similar ingredients being sold. So manufactured in Australia or maybe manufactured overseas, but sold by an Australian company.
So what are the dangers of tanning gummies? Do we know the short-term or even the long-term effects?
There are some studies that show that at very high doses, beta-carotenoids might be hepatotoxic. That means cause liver damage or liver failure in some cases. There are also other studies that show that if you are a smoker, your risk of lung cancer may be elevated as a result of beta-carotenoids at high doses. But I think most concerningly for me as a dermatologist, it gives people this false sense of belief that they have safety in the sun because they've taken a tanning gummy and therefore could stay out longer. But we have to be really clear that tanning gummies do not confer any UV benefit at all. It's purely giving this yellowy orange colour to the skin, which some people may perceive as looking, healthier. But it really ties into what I think is quite a worrying trend and a growing trend for this need or desire to look tanned and look sun-kissed, which I think flies in the face of what we've been trying to do for many years in terms of sun safety.
And looking at that trend, we've seen it come back across social media, especially for young people, and tan lines have come back in fashion. Why is that happening?
Absolutely. And it's, I think, pretty sickening and really distressing for me. And it's a real thing. We see it. I took my family recently to Bali, and the number of young females we saw with the tan lines, sort of wearing them as a badge of honour, was really alarming. It's one of those viral trends that we see infiltrate social media and then really, I think, impact young, impressionable people who consider it to be trendy. And again, it's really undoing a lot of the work that we have been trying to do, which is to promote the importance of sun safety. So again, it's almost seemed to be fashionable to be sunburnt, but then being left with these paler areas of the bikini lines. And I can really tell you that it's awful. And, we are definitely going to see the repercussions of this in years to come if this sort of a trend isn't absolutely quashed now.
And especially in Australia, we know how dangerous the sun is. It is quite wild to see those trends happen. And another one with the tanning kind of ingestibles, we're seeing nasal sprays and also injectables that are booming in the bodybuilding world especially. What are the safety concerns around those products?
Yeah, so huge. So these sorts of products are even potentially more worrying than the tanning gummies because they can actually stimulate true melanocytes. So they contain hormone-like ingredients. So there's one known as alpha MSH, which is a cleaved hormone that is produced naturally, but when you take it through the nose or inject it, it actually stimulates people's own melanocytes to produce true melanin. Now, again, the problem with this is that we're actually stimulating a cell that doesn't need to be stimulated. So melanocytes are the cell that can eventually give rise to melanoma if they're allowed to reproduce uncontrollably. So what we don't want to do is subject them to artificial sources of stimulation because you can easily trigger a melanoma, which for some people may be fatal.
Now, the tanning on social media trend has kind of popped off this year, but in the bodybuilding world, like I mentioned, these injectables have been used for a while. Do you think that there's enough being done in this space to warn people about the risks?
It's a really good question. It's certainly not, I think, in mainstream media, and it's not something that we in the medical industry will be talking to our patients about regularly because it's all subvert or covert, right? So it's all being done behind closed doors. It's being purchased online through very shady organisations. And it's sort of, I think many of the people who indulge in the injectables and all of these things sort of know deep down that it's unlikely to be beneficial to their health. And if anything, it's going to be harmful. So it's something that I think we probably need to shed more light on to really expose the industry for what it is and to explain the dangers, because it's a slippery slope. So you have the tanning injectables, the tanning nasal sprays. You also have, of course, the whole anabolic steroid industry as well, which again can have significant health impacts. And it sort of ties into this idea of trying to be as large as possible, as tanned as possible, accentuate musculature. And it really is quite damaging on many levels. I completely agree. I think we probably need to do more to emphasise how harmful it can be, particularly to those who are young and impressionable.
And are any of those products legal?
Look, I think there are a couple that are sold again online that haven't been clamped down by the Australian government necessarily. They're definitely not TGA approved, so they're not medications that the Australian government recognises as being safe and efficacious. As to the legality of it, I'm not entirely sure. I could imagine that there are some that are being sold and traded against Australian government regulations, but I'd have to look into these specific brands.
Are there any safe ways to tan if somebody does want to become a bit tanner?
As dermatologists, we generally recommend the traditional topical self-tanners, so they could be lotions or sprays. Now, these, again, aren't doing anything biologically to the skin. They're not stimulating our own melanocytes. They're simply adding a layer of pigment to the outer layers of skin and then building it up. That's, in my opinion, the safest way of tanning artificially. I don't ever want to be perceived as recommending that people go out and get natural sunlight to tan. I don't believe there's such a thing as a safe tan. We always recommend exposure to sun with UV protection. But if you were to go out and do something to help improve or to give your skin a little bit more colour, the topical tanning or spray tans are perhaps the safest.
Dr. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thanks very much for your time.
That was Dr. Ryan de Cruz, a leading dermatologist. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Briefing. That's it for now. Before you go, though, we'd love it if you could share this app with someone else you think might enjoy it as well. It's a really easy way you can support everything we do here at The Briefing. And you can check out our Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Helen Smith. Catch you next time.